The season of Teshuva, and we're coming soon to the parsha of Nitzavim, which speaks about the mitzvah of Teshuva. But this is what the month of Elul is all about, the month of Teshuva. And there is a fascinating Gemara in Yoma, Daf Pei Vav, which is what we begin with the number 1. And we read together, Heichi Domi Baal Teshuva. What's a Baal Teshuva? Mefarshim explain the word Baal Teshuva means not only someone that did repent, did Teshuva, but he's a Baal Teshuva. He owns it, he's mastered the Teshuva. In other words, he's reached perfect Teshuva. If you can, you never reach perfect, you always do more, but there's a certain, as the Rambam codes it, Teshuva Gemura in the words of the Rambam. So the Gemara wants to know, how does one know if they're in the level of a Baal Teshuva, they've mastered the Teshuva, they've accomplished it? So Amar Rav Yehuda said, Rav Yehuda, Kagoin, for example, Shabos L'Yodoi Dvar Aveira, the Aveira comes back to you, Pam Rishoina, it comes back one time, Vishniya, it comes back again, V'nitzel Heimeno, and this time you overcame. If you re-experience the scenario, it replays itself and you overcome, that's a Baal Teshuva. Machvi Rav Yehuda. Now, about a couple years ago, we discussed a bit of this topic, not at a shir, but it was from the Amud, meaning it was from the Bima over there, and it was only about 10 minutes, and nobody believed the word I said anyhow, so now I have it all in front of you on paper. So, Machvi Rav Yehuda then signaled that he means literally the circumstances have to replay themselves. Ba'oisai Isha, it has to be the same woman, if that was the original sin. Ba'oisai Perek, the same time of the year. Ba'oisai Makom, the same place.
Same time of the year?
Yeah, same season. Same season. If someone did the Aveira in summer, then he needs to be in there in the summer. The winter, the winter you're freezing cold anyways. Who has Taivas in the winter? In the summer, right, that's why we learn Pirkei Avos in the summer. It's warm, people are on the street, etc. Now, the Rambam actually learns Ba'oisai Perek means the same time of your life. Right. Not the same season, the same time of your life. That you have the same strength, the same gusto, the same desires. And negating that if one sinned when they were 20 and then when they're 95, God, I'll never do it again, I have remorse. So you'll see the Rambam says, that's a level of tshuva, but that's, it's weak. So Rav Yehuda said the same woman, Ba'oisai Perek, which either means the same time of your life or it means the same time of the year. Oisai Makom, the same place. If someone did the Aveira in a certain area, maybe they felt secure, they wouldn't be busted. But a different area, no two areas are the same, no two streets are the same. In order for the scenario to be reenacted, it needs the exact same place. You were comfortable there last time, now you're there again. And all the lights are green, all the boxes are checked. And let's see what happens now. And if you withstand, that's the proof that you have done pure tshuva. That's what the Gemara says. So, does that mean that somebody's supposed to go back literally to the same place and reenact the situation? That's called bringing oneself into a test, into an isayin. It's asking for trouble. There's an old sefer from about 600 years ago known as Leket Yosher. And in it he says, I heard that there was somebody who took the Gemara seriously, and they went back to the same place, everything the same, and guess what? They stumbled again. That's what he said. He says, Ma'aser Shehoya. He says, the guy went in with the best intentions, and then when he came there, couldn't hold himself back. So it's almost like bad advice, right? It seems like, so what's Rav Yehuda trying to tell us? So we're going to see there's generally 3 opinions. The Baal Shem Tov has a whopper on this, and the Noda Yehuda attacks it, and we're going to try and explain it. That is the journey that we have. So let's begin. We begin with the Rambam. The Rambam in number 2 is a Rambam in Hilchos Teshuva, the beginning of the second parak, and says the Rambam, Eizo hi tshuva gemur, what's complete tshuva? Zeh sheba liyodoi dover, this is someone that it came to him. the circumstances sha'avra boy that he previously succumbed to. The efshir b'yodei lasos, and he could do it again. It can happen again. Upirish, but he abstains. V'lo yasa, and he didn't repeat his actions. Mipnei Teshuva, because he meant it for real, because of the Eibishter, because he repented to the Eibishter. Loi megira, wasn't scared from seeing anybody, or wasn't scared of something happening to him. V'loi mekishlo in kayach, he wasn't weak. No, he had the full stamina, the full gusto. Keitzad, so the Rambam says, let me spell it out for you. Harei shebal isha ba'aver, someone lives with a woman in sin. Or la'achar zman, at a later point in Siyachad Imma, he's with her again. That means just the two of them in the room. And the Rambam, he still has all those feelings for her. That's the idea of what we saw in number 1. It's not a different woman. It's the same woman, and he has the same feelings. He has the same strength. We said the Rambam interprets the words ba'isai perak to mean the same point of your life. You have the same strength. Says the Rambam, it's the same place. Because maybe in one place you're comfortable to sin and lo b'makom acher. Yesh anashim mistovavim. Not every place is as comfortable. Because someone mishu yitfok ala delet, mishu yikanes. You're never as comfortable. Ken. So the Rambam says u'pirish, and he abstains. V'loy avar, and he doesn't transgress. Zehu ba'al tshuva gemura. Says the Rambam, this is the real deal. This guy is the real deal. Hu sheshloima amar shloima says zechor es barach b'mei b'chorasayich. Remember your Creator while you're young. Before the bad days come, v'giu shanim asher tom, the years will come that you'll say, I don't desire them. The Rambam's using the pasuk to teach you that remember the Eibishter while you're young. In other words, if somebody stumbles, do tshuva while you're young, and when you're able to do the sin again, then your tshuva is meaningful. Instead of waiting till much later, says the Rambam, "V'im lo yishav elu b'meizik knusay." What if he decides to turn over a new leaf when he's lying 90 is young, but if someone's 110, right? Says he can't do masha ha'ya'isa. He can't do it anymore. So the Rambam says, all right, afal pisha eina tshuva me'ula, my elasilai. It's not great, but it works. Ba'al tshuva hu, you are a ba'al tshuva. Now, I started my comments by saying that the words ba'al tshuva refer to someone who's mastered tshuva. So over here, the Rambam's using the words ba'al tshuva just loosely. Because he says this guy has not done wonderful tshuva. It's not tshuva me'ula, but it counts. What's tshuva gemura? When you do it while you're young, when you're able to sin again. We have plenty more copies. They're all sitting here gaining dust. By the way, from every couple sets I make, I mistakenly put two of the same papers together. So if it ever happens, please don't be shy and ask for the other paper. Because I already see I have more leftovers of one than the other. So that's just what happens. All right. Listen, it all looks the same. It's all black and white in small letters. All right. So the Rambam in number 2, what does he teach us? If you're medayik in the words of the Rambam, you will notice the Rambam does not say you should look for the woman. What does he say in number 1? In number 2 in the first line. If it happened to come your way, not that you should seek her out, but if somehow you happen to be walking that side of town, and before you knew it, you're in the same parlor, and she's there, says the Rambam, if you abstain, that's pure tshuva. But it's almost like the Eibishter brings you there, not that you bring yourself there.
Is it Dafka this Avera, or is it in general?
This is just an example. It's every Avera. We'll see the Baal Shem Tov gives an example of Lashon Hara in any Avera, Real tshuva is that you abandon the sin, you feel remorse, and you abandon it to the point you wouldn't do it again. How do you know that you won't do it again? If you have the opportunity to do it and you abstain. So it's true across the board by every sin. Okay. Comes the Rambam in number 3. It's in the same Hilchas Tshuva. In fact, it's the halacha right after what we saw in number 2. And the Rambam says in number 3 the following. Umahi Tshuva, what Bechlal is Tshuva? It's very strange. In the halacha before he says, what's Tshuva Gemura, what's complete Tshuva? Now he says, let's backtrack. What's Tshuva in general? Very strange why he does that order. But says the Rambam, who, you know what it is? Sheyazav ha'choy techetoy. The sinner should abandon the sin, v'yisirenu mimachshavta, remove it from their thought. V'yigmer beliboy, resolve in the heart, shalo yaseh, I'll never do it again. Shenemar yazav rosha darka, the rosha should abandon his path, v'yishaven, a man of iniquities, machshavosav, should abandon his thoughts. V'chein yisnachem al sha'avar. One should have regret on what they did. You know, the tshuva has a few components. There's regretting the past and having a good resolve for the future. Jump to the end of the line. V'yeyid olav yodea talumos. The Eibishter who knows the depth and the inner recesses of our hearts will testify, shelo yoshuv l'zeh chet l'olam, you'll never sin again. Commentaries understand that this is another pshat in the Gemara of number 1. You know what it means, the same woman, the same time, in the same place? It doesn't mean the scenario literally has to be reenacted. It means the Eibishter looks into your heart, and he can see that if you would be tested with the same scenario, you would not succumb. The Eibishter looks and he sees that right now, the way you are right now, if you would be put in that street, in that house, etc., you would abstain. So this is understood to be another pshat. So why is the Rambam giving 2 explanations? Well, the Rambam does say one is tshuva stam, the other one is complete tshuva. The Eibishter looking into the recesses of your heart, that's general tshuva. Complete tshuva is if it actually reenacts literally. Not that you should look for her, but the Eibishter will bring you to her, and it literally reenacts kepshutai, and you abstain. That's tshuva gemura. Now you may wonder, why would the Eibishter want to reenact the situation? Why would the Eibishter want to bring you into the nisoyan? If he already sees in your heart that you wouldn't do it again, so he knows you're not going to do it. So why would he actually bring it to into actuality? So the Sfas Emes, in his commentary in Gemara, says the Eibishter is not doing it for him, is doing it for us. When someone sins, they can feel remorse for a very long time. They can eat themselves up forever. And you can get stop in your tracks, and you no longer accomplish because you're bogged down or weighed down by the, whatever the negative action may have been. You did tshuva, but you question yourself. You're double guessing. I don't know, did I really do tshuva or not? So therefore the Eibishter will bring you into that very same scenario, knowing that you will bystand it, to prove to yourself that it's complete tshuva. And then you can pick up and move on.
Is it possible that even though he is very, even though in his heart he's able to...
He's able, or he will.
He's out the situation.
Well, no. Then the Eibishter looks in your heart and knows that right now, if you would be there, you wouldn't do it. Now, if actually when you're there you would do it, so then that obviously is a contradiction of terms. No, it's that the Eibishter knows that if you would be there practically, you wouldn't do it. At this point of your life, tomorrow the winds may bring something else, which brings us to a fascinating statement of the Meiri in number 5. Exactly. So I want to show you a fascinating Meiri in number 5. We'll come back to number 4 soon. Number 5, the Meiri, Menachem Meiri, one of the great Rishonim.
Was he a Sephardi or Ashkenazi?
He was Ashkenazi. In Perpignan, in Provence.
Isn't Provence like a mix?
It was mostly Ashkenazi. It was it's part of France.
Yeah,
it was
it's the border region between France.
Yeah. Well, he was Ashkenazi. Provence is interesting. The biggest supporters of the Rambam were in Provence, and the greatest antagonists were also in Provence. Interesting. The
North French weren't against it?
Not openly. Letters were written to them. The Reb Shimshon of Shantz, he received letters, but they didn't want to openly wage a war against the Rambam. It was dafka those in Provence. And that led to the burning of the Rambam's Sfarim in the 1230s, etc. Look, so the Meiri wrote a work called Chibur HaTshuva. It's a fascinating work. And he says in number 5 like this. Shebe'eis HaTshuva goimer b'libay lazav darkei hara. When someone is in the midst of tshuva, let's say they make a resolve, I'm never doing it again. Tachlis aziva, never ever. He's leaving for good. Aval achar, guess what happens the next day? He's back down and dirty doing the same things. Yachichei yitzroi loshav lachtoi. The Yetzer gets the better of him and he sins. V'chein tamid, it's this roller coaster. Al derech midas aviseinu k'moshe kodem lanu, like we find by our fathers, as he mentioned before. So says the Meiri, does the later sin undermine the earlier tshuva? He says no. Shezeh omnam kvar hoysa tshuva tshuva. When you did the tshuva, and at that moment you felt that you would never do it again, be'eis he'asaysa, when it was done, it was good. V'ha'il, it works al chatoy makodim. It's effective for the previous sins. Later you sinned again. It's a new story. And he brings a mashal. V'yiyazeh bedimyan misha taval. Somebody goes to mikveh. V'achar atfilah, and right after he comes out, Allah shares priyad, he's touching a dead insect again. Not that he's holding it while he toivel. If somebody holds it while they toivel, it won't work. That's like if someone does tshuva and while they're repenting, they have in mind when they're going to sin again. But if when you toivel, you let go of the impurities, so if after you come out of the mikveh, a second later you're tamei again, the mikveh was good. The mikveh removed any previous impurities. Now you're tamei again, it's a new story. So says the Meiri. That's what he discusses before. I'll show you, send you a copy of the.
For tonight, he discusses.
No. No, he discusses in the thing, in the part before. No. So the moshul is mikveh, the nimshul is tshuva. If at one point somebody feels enough regret that they sincerely wouldn't do it again, that if it would actually reoccur, they would not do it again, that's complete tshuva. If the Eibishter can look into your heart and see that right now, the feelings that you have are so powerful and so strong, the remorse is so great, you really would not do it again, then even if the next morning you wake up and you feel different, it doesn't invalidate the tshuva from the day before. The Rebbe actually says a similar thing about a Beinani. The Alter Rebbe describes a Beinani as someone who would never sin in their entire life. If right now you're okay in sinning in 2 weeks, that means even now you're not a Beinani. But the Rebbe writes, that if right now you're so inspired that you truly would never sin again, then you're a Beinani today. Tomorrow you sin, that's tomorrow's story. But today you were a Beinani. Because today you had the true commitment never to sin again. You had a Beinani moment. And that's a very similar idea to what the Meiri says over here about Teshuva. So anyhow, that fits with the Rambam's description that the Eibishter looks into your heart and he sees that if you would meet that same woman, the same dark alley, the same time of the night, the same place, nothing would happen. Pure tshuva. The next day you're back with her, that's the next day. Doesn't invalidate the tshuva. Yeah? Okay. So far we have 2 explanations of the Rambam of what the Gemara in number 1 meant. Either the Eibishter appears in your heart and he sees that you wouldn't do it, or the Rambam gave another, perhaps a more grand, that the Eibishter actually will lead you there in order for you to represent that your tshuva was perfect. Look at number 4, the Sefer Chasidim from Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid. Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, one of the greatest of the medieval scholars, he passes away in 1217 in Germany. Awesomely great person. He writes in Sefer Chasidim like this, in number 4. Al Yoimar, a person should never say, Harei Amar Rav Yehuda said, Ba'isa Isha. You have to, it's the same woman, Ba'isa Makam, Ba'isa Perk. Akayim Zeh. Somebody might say, all right, let me go find her. I have to go find her to reenact the situation. Says Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, bad idea. And he says a fascinating thing. He said, it's not you that I'm worried about. You might mean your tshuva for real. But Shem what if the woman becomes very excited? And she'll bring you down. And the rabbis never meant you should bring yourself to sin. So Rabbi Yehuda Achazit says clearly, do not take the Gemara number 1 literally. It can't be Rav Yehuda never meant literally. Like I mentioned the story from the Leked Yosher, that there was a famous guy 700 years ago who went with the greatest intentions, and boom, he just sinned again. Fine. So far, what do we have? We have the Rambam and Rabbi Yehuda Achazit telling us, don't look for the woman. Either the Eibishter will bring you there, or another option, the Eibishter, you could stay in your bedroom, but the Eibishter peers into your heart. This takes us to number 6. Number 6 is the famous Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah from Gerona. So he actually, as when he was younger, he learned in Provence, in Montpellier, under somebody by the name of Reb Shloime of Montpellier, the Rashba min Hohor, the Rashba from the mountain, from Montpellier. And this Shloime min Hohor was the greatest antagonist of the Rambam in the early 1200s, and Rabbeinu Yonah was with him against the Rambam, to the point that the Rambam's Sforim were burnt. There's a lot of history. I think we once maybe discussed it. In the end, Rabbeinu Yonah felt awful about what he did, because in the very place where the Rambam's Sforim were burnt, a little while later, 24 wagon loads of Sforim were burnt in Paris, in France, and apparently it was in the same place where the Rambam's Sforim were burnt. Rabbeinu Yonah realized that the Eibishter is showing them, you burnt, the Rambam's Sforim, you're going to lose the whole Torah. So Rabbeinu Yonah then traveled around southern France and through Spain, and he went from city to city, got up in the shuls. This is in the about the year 1240 or so. And he said, I sinned against Moshe, the Rambam. I vowed to go to Eretz Yisrael. I'm going to go to Tveria, where he's buried, with 10 people, and go to his kever and ask for Mechillah. And from then on, whenever Rabbeinu Yonah gave a shir, in every shir he would mention the Rambam's opinion, and he would never argue. And he planned to go to Eretz Yisrael, so he started traveling south. He wanted to reach the southern border of Spain, I guess, and take a boat to Eretz Yisrael. But on the way down, he passed through Toledo, in the middle of Spain, and they said, we don't have a rov, please stay with us. So he stayed there, and he ended up dying in Toledo. But he wrote the Sefer Sha'arei Teshuva, the gates of repentance. During Elul, many Yidden around the world learned this Sefer. Classic Sefer about Teshuva. Lots of halachas of Teshuva, lots of ideas, philosophy. It's a beautiful Sefer, it's very interesting, not difficult. And many say the reason he wrote this Sefer was because of the guilt that he felt about the war he led with the Rambam. Because, by the way, when they burnt the Rambam's Sfarim, there were Yidden that were hurt, the Goyim, they cut out tongues from Yidden, and a lot of Yidden were hurt, and he felt so guilty that he wrote this Sefer. So he writes in number 6, says Rabbeinu Yonah, Ha'ikir hatisha asar. He's describing all the ingredients for tshuva. He says ingredient number 19. Azivas chetoy, you have to leave the sin, bihizdam loy, if it comes your way. Like the Rambam says, don't look for her if it comes your way. V'hu b'toikev tavosai, and you still have the full taiva, and you abstain, that's another ingredient to pure tshuva. And he quotes that the rabbi said, who's about tshuva, that his tshuva reaches the chair of glory? Kasher nivchan v'yotza naki, when he was tested and came out clean, by Seperek, the same time, the same place, the same woman. And then he says again, Ki hizdamen achet liyodai, when the chet comes your way, he says again, and you have the strength of your Yetzer Hara, and oinoi b'shrei bitno, you have the strength in your stomach, like the first time round when you sinned. But this time you conquer your Yetzer, and you were saved purely because of your fear of God. And then he says, Umisha lo yizdamen liyodai, what if Nebuch, you're waiting? When will the Eibishter bring it my way? And he doesn't. So what do you do then? You should add in your soul fear of God day after day, every day. And then he says, when your fear of heaven is powerful enough to overcome your taivas, then the Eibishter will look into the recesses of your heart. The Eibishter who searches out the heart will understand. The Eibishter knows that if the Nisoyim would come, you would yatzeles nafsha, you would save yourself. He says this in front of God is the highest level of tshuva. So like the Rambam, he gives two options of how to fulfill the advice of Rav Yehuda. Either it comes your way, or if you don't have that, then the Eibishter will appear in your heart and testify that, okay. So far, so good. So this is where the ship starts to rock. In number 7. Number 7 is a Klei Yoker. The Klei Yoker was a great rabbi in Prague, a student of the Maharal, and he passes away in the early 1600s. Not known as a Kabbalist, known as a big Baldrush. He was a great darshan. I'm sure he had a hand. Yeah, they print exactly. Now we have him in the. Yeah, he a great, beautiful darshan. Yeah, he was a student in the Rav. He only passed away a couple of years, about 10 years after. About 10 years. Okay.
By the way, the Ikar Atisha also, yeah? So if it's advice or for yourself, like how you should accomplish it, with the first one, you're able to know if you passed. The second one, you don't know.
You're right. So you don't know what the Eibishter knows. You see, the Eibishter might know you wouldn't do it, but how can you be so certain?
That you passed, you don't really know.
Right.
Saying
Right.
your best
Yeah.
foot forward, and that's it.
It's almost like if you're Zoiche, then the Eibishter will bring it, it's almost...
We'll let you know.
Yeah.
Try your best.
Yeah, it's interesting. When the Klei Yoker was Rav in Prague, the Shalom was there too. They were Abonim there together until it was the Klei Yoker passed away and the Shalom left almost the same year, and the Taisus Yom Tov was there then. Anyhow, so number 7 says the Klei Yoker. This is in Parshas Chukas about the Para Aduma, and he writes here a whopper. So hold on to your chairs. Va'al tzad horemez, you want to know what the paraduma represents. Makam iti loymar. I'm going to take the liberty to say, al pi divrei Baal HaAkedah, based on what the Akedah says. The Akedah, or known as the Akedah Yitzchak, he lived in the 1400s. Rabbi Yitzchak Arama, a great philosopher. Shapirish, he explains all the inyane hapar al darchi atshuva. K'mavur b'sifra. Take a look in his sefer, you'll see the paraduma somehow represents all aspects of tshuva. So it says the Klei Yoker, so I'm going to take the liberty to go a bit further. Look what he says. Valzeh haderech korev lishmoya. It makes sense to say, sherefuas hanefesh kerefuas haguf. Curing the soul and curing the body are not too far away from each other. They say Plato said that a good doctor sees 3 things in the patient: the illness or the wound, the body in its entirety, and then also the soul, the person's personality, the mind and the heart. He says a good doctor. I wonder when the Chazal say in the end of Kiddushin that the best doctors go to Gehenna, there's many pshatim. Based on Plato, you could say, he says that a good doctor has the responsibility to see all 3 things. And therefore, if they don't, so it's the good doctor that carries much more responsibility because they're supposed to see much more of the patient. Who knows? I don't know. You heard it here. Anyhow. One?
They think that it's all them. Then they go to Gehenna.
Yeah. There's lots of explanations. There's another one that people in Gehenna are ill, they're sick, they need help. Which doctors can God send? Not the weak ones, only the best. Only the best doctors can be given the mission to help people that are in Gehenna. All right. Anyhow, there's all types of explanations.
May I make a l'chaim word from Malki? Today, my brother's wife had a miracle that happened to her 14 years ago, and Baruch Shem, she survived, and she is alive. Which then, at the point, I flew out to San Antonio because they didn't know if she was going to make it in any way. But Baruch Hashem, she was able to stay alive.
Wow. L'chaim to that. L'chaim. And maybe the Eibishter give Yeshua to all those that need it.
Yigal ben Aziz.
Ben Simcha.
L'chaim. So says the Klei Yoker, Ki hamashke hamoya l'trufas adam chayla. The liquids that are given as a remedy to a sick person are not given to a healthy person, right? A healthy person doesn't take antibiotics. Even a sick person maybe shouldn't take. Now, obviously, it depends on the. Some doctors, the moment you walk in, they're already prescribing antibiotics. It all depends on the. Right? No two doctors are the same. But says the Klei Yakar, there are definitely certain cures which are given to the ill. Mazdik la'adam bari, if you give it to a healthy person, it's dangerous. And he says, so too it's spiritually. Fasting, take fasting for an example. The Gemara says in Tainus, Bar Beirav the Yosef Betanisa, Kal Bolechel Sherusa. A Talmud Chacham who fasts and therefore is weak and can't learn, a dog should eat his food. Rashi says that means that his fast is worthless. It's as if he fasted because the dog ate his lunch. Hare, you see that the fasts, a fast makes those that are pure impure. But someone who's impure needs to fast. Someone who's tamei needs to fast. Pirish meaning, misha nitma kvar, if someone taka sinned, could be they have to fast. Tzoymes are necessary. So, just like the physical phenomenon of medicine, for the ill, it's beneficial. For the healthy, it's detrimental. So too spiritually, there are certain actions, if someone's a sinner, they need to do. If someone's pure, they shouldn't do it. It's like a paraduma that makes the impure pure and the pure impure. So says the Klei Yakar, it's like the Gemara in Yuma. Heichi dami Baal Teshuva. What's a Baal Teshuva? When the same thing happens again, a Pirush men and you abstain. And Rav Yehuda signaled ba'isa perek, the same time, the same woman, the same place. Says the Klei Yakar, ki makom achet, the same place, v'shar sha'arva boy, the same room, the same gate, the same mamish, the same shtub, the same house, the same room. Tzarech shesham tiig v'rosai. Dafka in that same playing field, now you have to show your strength to be miskaber on your yetzer, because kvar toam poi tam avera. You were already here and you had a good time last time. Or mavakish the mudda, and you want to repeat what you're accustomed to, and you hold yourself back in the very place. And he's saying like this. That means, should a tzaddik go to these places, start locating the harlots? God forbid. The Baal Teshuva needs to. So it's like a paraduma. What's beneficial for the Baal Teshuva is illegal for the tzaddik. And he says, this is what it means. The simple meaning of the pasuk's like the pasuk in Hosea. Instead of it being said to the Jews, you're no longer God's nation, Ya'armalem, will be said to them, B'nei Kelcha, you're the children of God. Says the Klei Yakar, a whopper. B'makom doesn't have to mean instead, it means in the very place. In that very place where 6 months ago XYZ happened, and the Eibush said, what are you doing? In that very place, the Eibush is going to say, you're mein kind. You have to go back to the scene of the crime. Dafka b'makom achet, in the sin of the place. Asher Sham, there was said, you're not my nation. In that very place, the tshuva has to be. And in that place, Hashem says, you're my kid. A tzaddik can't go there. For him, is matamehim. For the Baal Teshuva, he needs to go. And he says further, V'yesh oimrim, he says, incredible, this is what the Gemara means in Brachas. A well-known statement. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Avo have a debate. What's greater, someone that sinned and did tshuva, or someone who was always good? Rabbi Yochanan says that tzaddik is better. Rabbi Avo and the Rambam Paskins like him says no. Mokum shebalei tshuva, in the place where balei tshuva stand, tzaddikim gemurim are not able to stand. He says, you know what it means? It means the physical mokum, the physical place. That house where the Avera happened. Ki abal tshuva needs tzorich lamed, it needs to stand. B'makom asher omad sham b'risha, in that very same place. Ule his yachid, he needs to go b'yichud with that very woman that he sinned. A tzaddik gomer is not allowed to be there. That's prat b'makom, in the place that a Baal Teshuva is. The tzaddik gomer is not able to be halachically. He has no business going there. Aval a tzaddik gomer, it's also to do yichud. It's also to bring himself to a test. It comes out that yichud, being in the same room with the woman, which is the tshuva, that's the actual tshuva of going there, not sinning. For the Torah, for the tzaddik, it's illegal. It's matamehim. It's against Torah. He's not allowed to go. He has no permission. But for the Baal Teshuva, he needs to go, and fakir, it purifies him. So says the Klei Yakar, you see that tshuva, which is a spiritual refuah, is like paraduma. This dichotomy. Yeah, physically that makom. The tzaddik can be. It's incredible pshat.
Yes, Shem. Doesn't say this.
Right, V'yeshem. Okay, so who else gives this pshat? Rabbi Leo HaKohen of Izmir. He lived in Izmir in Turkey. He was born in the year 1659. And he passes away in the early 1700s. He was a big rabbi, a great thinker in Turkey. And he wrote the most interesting svarim. They're mamash, you can't put them down. They'll keep you up all night. He wrote a sefer called Medrash Talpias, which is the most unbelievable collection of the most fascinating tidbits of the information you can imagine. And he wrote many svarim. He was a big darshan. In fact, he writes that one Shabbos in his shul, people would come, Faraya people would come to his shul just to hear the drasha. After one of his drashas, a balabas says, Rabbi, what I was going to do later today, I'm not going to tell you, I'm embarrassed. I can't tell you what I was going to do. But I can tell you is that after your drasha, I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it. He writes in one of his svarim that if he accomplished anything, it was convincing people out of suicide. Interesting. So Rabbi Leo HaKohen of Izmir, he wrote the Shevet Musar, a famous sefer. He also wrote a sefer called Ezer Eliyahu. And towards the end, he discusses this idea, and he says the same pshat as Mokim Shebale Tshuva Oimdim, the same idea that the very place the Baal Tshuva needs to go, he needs to go to that woman and reenact, and the tzaddik can't go. And then he says, unbelievable, he says he found other hints in Gemara to this idea. To Gemara in Brachas Daf Yutes. The Gemara says like this: if you see a Talmud Chacham that sinned at night, Al Tahadher Acharov B'yoim. By day, don't question him, because perhaps he did tshuva. Says the Gemara, perhaps? No, he certainly did tshuva. So the Gemara says if you see a Talmud Chacham sin at night, don't think negative about him, because he definitely did tshuva. Says Rabbi Leo HaKohen, you know what it means? It means at night, you're watching from your window, you see a Talmud Chacham going into the house of a Zoyna. And what are you doing? What are you doing? So the Gemara says, don't question him. You know why he's going there? To do tshuva. It's because 25 years ago he did a sin over there. And he has to go back there to complete his tshuva. So the simple meaning of the Gemara is, if he sinned at night, then by the time day comes, you could be sure he did tshuva. Says Eliyahu HaKohen, no, it means even what you perceived as a sin was actually an act of tshuva.
Don't judge your friend.
He was doing tshuva. He walked in there deliberately because he needs to go there. Fascinating. It reminds me of a story when Rabbi Yosef Shaul Nathanson, who was a great Rav in Lviv, and when he was a young man, he went to visit Rab Meir of Premishlan. Rab Meir Premishlan, a great Chassidic Rebbe. So this is in the early 1800s. And he visited Rab Meir Premishlana, and he looks into Rab Meir's room, and he sees Rab Meir sitting there at the table, spacing out, like staring at the wall. And Yosef Shaul thinks, this is the great Rabbi Rab Meir. He's not even learning. He's sitting in his study, twiddling his fingers. It really bothered him. In those days, people were learning 18 hours a day. I mean, this sight really troubled him. So before Rabbi Yosef Shaul left, Rab Meir told him, by the way, you know the Gemara in Brachas that we just quoted? If you see a Talmud Chacham sinning, don't think negative. He did tshuva. He says, you know what it means? He says, it means you're walking past somebody's room and you see a Talmud Chacham sitting by the table, wasting time, he's sinning. No. He was doing tshuva. You think the guy was staring at the walls because he wasn't learning. You think he was twiddling his fingers. No. At that time, he was thinking about the Eibush, he was doing tshuva. So it's a similar idea as Rabbi Leo HaKohen, that what you perceived as a sin was actually an act of repentance. But he says that when you see the Talmud Chacham walk into the house of the Zayna, he's doing tshuva. That itself was the act of tshuva. Unbelievable. So yeah.
So you get to his place. What's his place?
He was saying you have to go back to your own. So we have the Klei Yoker, and we have Rabbi Yoel HaKohen saying this fascinating interpretation. Turn the page. Number 8 to 9 is something that we saw once before on a Thursday night in the Mendel's old place. It's an awful story, but I can't get enough of it. So we have it again. No, but for this, at that point, I brought it for one reason. Tonight, I have it for a different reason. We go to number 8, a statement of the Smak, Rabbi Yitzchak of Kurvil, one of the Baalei Tosfos, 800 years ago. And he starts like this. He says, V'shar mitzvahs, besides for the big 3, all other mitzvahs, B'tzina, what?
Stands for what?
A Sefer Mitzvahs Cotton. In the same generation, there was someone who wrote Sefer Mitzvahs Godel, the Samag. They both lived in France. They were both the Baalei Tosfos. The Smak was a little younger, so it's also a smaller book. So he says like this in number 8. Besides for the big 3, pass him a paper. Besides for the big 3 Averis, everything else. But sinna in private, if a guy would say, eat the treif or I'll kill you, so Yavar, eat the treif, al Yaharag, don't take the bullet. So the Smak's opinion is well known, im yirtzeh. You're allowed to eat the treif, but you are also allowed to take the bullet. In contrast to the Rambam says you're not allowed to take the bullet, suicide. You have to eat the treif. Says the Smak, not only you're allowed to die, midas chsidis shelo yaver, the appropriate thing is not to eat the treif. Now the Ein Loimer says, don't say like the Rambam, that since the Gemara says yaver, you could do the sin and not get killed. So if you do get killed, im yaver PM, if you go against the rabbis and take the bullet, maybe God will hold you accountable for suicide. Gam doma hine nidr, the Eibishter will demand your blood from you. He says no. Since you're dying for the sake of heaven, it's a mitzvah. He brings a proof from Shaul. Shaul Moser Atzmei Lemisa, right? Shaul in the War of the Plishtim, the end of Shmuel Aleph, he asks his nar, his attendant, Pegabi, kill me, Va'al Yisrael Bi'arelim, so the goyim shouldn't get hold of me and torture me, etc. Now what happened was his attendant said, I can't do it. So Shaul said, I'll do it myself. He put his spear or the sword in the ground. He fell on it, but he missed his heart. There was a failed suicide attempt, and somebody else later came and killed him. But he said, Sheniskav l'shem shemayim. Shaul wanted to give his life for a good reason. We once had a shiur about the Crusades, and we saw there's a debate if Shaul did the right thing or the wrong thing by the suicide. But then he continues. He said, I'll bring a proof from a well-known story. Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, who we already had on number 4, the Sefer Chassidim. Shehizer, he warned his students not to go to a chuppah because they're going to travel through a forest. There'll be bandits there.
Shame.
He told them not to go, right? Who's chuppah? Ken, yeah, the chuppah. And the Hanholah said not to go. And they went anyways. The bandits, they trusted B'masha Yodu Lahaskas Hashem. They knew practical Kabbalah. Hochel they went. The bandits pounced upon them. They said the Eibish's name and they survived. When they came back, Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid said to them, Ibadatem ha'olam haba, you lost your portion of the world to come. Unless you go back, beloy shumas, because you have to go back in the forest. The bandits pounce on you, and this time around you don't mention God's name, and you give yourselves to die. And they taka went and they were killed. What? Yeah. So, hold on. Go to number 9. Why am I bringing this? What's his proof? The proof is that they went into the forest knowing they would die. It was a suicidal mission. Their Rebbe told them, go back to the forest, meet up with the bandits, and don't say God's name. They're going to kill them. It's a suicidal mission.
You're not allowed to use Hashem's name.
Okay. Well, he warned them
Wasn't
not
like
to.
the first case of Vader.
Right. No, well, the sin they did is they shouldn't have been there. They were told not to go, so if they go and use the shame, they shouldn't have been there to use the name. The Chidor writes in one of his diaries, he was traveling and what?
They put themselves in this comment.
Yeah, so they have no excuse for the fact they used the shame the first time round. But the Smak is talking about the second time round. It was a suicidal mission to go into the forest. Elamai, you're allowed. If you have the good reason behind it, suicide is okay. Look at number 9. And if Rabbi Yehuda Chassid tells you, look at number 9. This is a comment of Reb Reuven Margolis, the great scholar, on his commentary on the Sefer Chassidim of Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid.
The same Margolis.
Different.
No, not the Kohen guy. No.
He's Margolis. He wakes up.
Margolius and yeah.
Librarian.
Librarian in Tel Aviv. The Shilas Tshuvas Min HaShamayim.
It's a different one.
Reuven Margolis. No, different than
Ephraim.
Ephraim Zalman Margolis, who questioned the validity of Kohanim these days. We don't mention him.
We do mention him, but Mendy gets
He's not the same one on the same.
No, this is Reuven Margolis. Reuven Margolis passed away in the Chofs. The Rebbe has letters to him. Ephraim Zalman Margolis was 200 years ago. So he says Reuven Margolis. He found in the Sefer of the Rameh Mipanu. Menachem Azariah of Panu, right? We like to quote him, but this is a Sefer we don't really quote. The Sefer Kanfei Yoina. And the Rameh Mipanu, we're in number 9, the second line. In the Kavon of snow. If somebody sinned a certain sin in machshava, in thought, in speech or action, what was the sin? That he used practical Kabbalah, the Abish's names. It's a oven plili, it's a horrible sin. And says the Rameh, 450 years ago, like we find by Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid Zal, the Ikadar Misam Sales Rabbeinu Yoina, who we mentioned also today, the Shari Teshuva, that his students used the Shemus HaKodesh to test them, to see if they work. And they went one night to a place of bears and lions and other chayes rois in the desert, and they used the Shemus, and guess what? It worked. They were saved. In the morning, the Rebbe heard what happened, and he told them, if you want to be atoned in this world, and not to enter b'kisufa kamekudsha brichu, not to enter in shame in front of God, he decreed upon them, sheyasu, they have to return to the desert, in that very place of the bears and the lions that they were that night, and they should go to mikveh, they should confess, and this time they don't use the shemus, and they did it, and guess what happened? They were consumed, all of them were consumed by the wild animals. With our sins, the chayes rois ate their bodies, except what was left over. I'm sorry for grossing you out, but this is except their hands, their faces. And in the morning, Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid he sent some students to go find out what happened. And guess what they found? He said, go lirois mani, what happened to them? And Nebuch, the friends come to the desert and they see the remains. Vehevi lebeis hamedrash, they brought the remains from the desert. The faces and the hands, they brought them to the Beis Medrash. And Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid said that this death atoned for them. Now they go straight to Gan Eden. And he gave the reason, because they used the Eibishter's names. But then he said like this, why weren't their faces and hands consumed? Haponim v'hayodayim, the faces and hands that held the Sfarim with Hashem's names. Right? The hands held the Sfarim which had the different names of Hashem. And their eyes, their faces saw it. So that was untouchable by the animals. Right? They read with their eyes the names and they held the Sfarim with their hands, so they were untouched by the animals. The rest of the bodies were consumed. So many questions. It's the same story. It sounds like what's the chances that it happened twice? On the other hand, the details are completely different. One is they went to a chuppah and there was bandits. This is they went to test the names of Hashem in the desert with wild animals. So who knows? Maybe it happened more than once.
Though he does say Rabbeinu Yonah Chassid.
Right, exactly. Yeah, could be a separate story. I mean, the number 8, the smak. He's almost the same time as he's in the 1200s. So it was just a couple years after the story happened. So he would have had a authoritative version. The Rameh Mipano, Rabbi Yankov Emden says he was the king of the Kabbalists. So if he tells you a story, it's also accurate. So maybe it happened twice. I don't know. But why am I quoting it? Not to gross you out. But there was someone called the Rashbats. He was one of the last of the Rishonim. He lived in Spain most of his life. In 1391, there was a big expulsion of Spain, and the Rashbats went south to Algeria. He lived there for the rest of his life. And he passes away in the early 1400s. Rab Shimshon ben Semach Doron was his name. And his Sfarim are very popular, very important Sfarim. And he quotes the story, and he says, I don't understand this whole story. So they did something wrong. They used practical Kabbalah when they shouldn't have. Fine, it's a big sin. So what do you do when you sin? You repent. Let him stay at home and repent. Why did they have to go on a suicide mission back to the forest or back to the desert? It doesn't make sense. He says, because of the Gemara in number 1. You have to replay the scenario. In order to do tshuva, you can't stay in your bedroom. You have to go back to the scene of the crime. You have to replay all the details. The same bandits in the same forest, or the same animals in the same desert, everything the same, and this time you don't do what you did last time. And he says that's the only way to explain the story. So he learns, like the Klei Yakar, like the Shevet Musa, you actually have to go there. Because if it's the Eibishter looking in your heart, why couldn't Rabbi Yehuda Chassid tell his students, do tshuva in your bedrooms, until you do pure tshuva? If the Eibishter feels you have to die, he'll take your life somehow. But why suicide go back to the scene of the crime? It must be you have to for the tshuva to be complete.
The other doesn't hold like that. It says Bali, I think.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, right. Where this is a third approach, but now we see there's actually a few people who hold this way. Then we come to the Baal Shem Tov in number 10, and this is a whopper. There's a sefer called Baal Shem Tov Al HaTorah. Okay, it was printed a long time ago. What it is a collection of teachings and sayings of the Baal Shem Tov from students of the Baal Shem Tov and their students and their students. It's absolutely a fascinating collection.
Who put it together?
I don't remember offhand the guy's name, but the Rebbe also quotes it. And the guy that put it together, he quotes everything. He writes where everything comes from. So it's no. It's a while ago.
Even
a while
Shem
ago.
Tov is not.
Right, because it's also a collection. Right.
Yeah, but it's not even like before Kahas put it out. There was
Yeah.
questions as to its authenticity. Some of it.
Right. So over here as well, the guy that wrote the Baal Shem Tov Torah is written a long time ago. But everything there he quotes the source. So the question is, if you trust that source, some of these sources are people 4 generations after the Baal Shem Tov, right? So you're only hearing this fascinating word from someone 80 years after the Baal Shem Tov. You wonder, why didn't someone write it before? You can always have these types of questions. But this is the tradition. If I'm not mistaken, it's being quoted from the early Kamarna Rebbe from like 150 years ago. So it goes back a while. The Baal Shem Tov is talking about a story in Masechta Gittin. Reish Lakish, who was a bandit and then he became a great scholar. The Gemara says a story. Reish Lakish sold himself to a group of cannibals. And he went there and he took with him a sack, and inside was concealed like a metal ball. You break people's teeth with it. Anyhow, he knew these cannibals would arrest him, imprison him. Right before they kill a person, they give a person a last wish. That was like an unspoken rule, maybe a spoken rule. So they incarcerated him on the day of his execution. So he said, I want my last wish to be the following. I want you all to sit down in a row, and I have my little sack. I want to, guys, give you a little hit with the sack. So they looked at him and said, all right, listen, the deal's a deal, right? Last wish. Reish Lakish was a powerful man, and he had a big metal ball in that sack, unbeknownst to them. And he killed all of them. First, he beat he hit each one. He disfigured their face. He said, "Oh, you're laughing at me!" And then he killed him. So, Tosfos says this story happened before he became the famous Reish Lakish, while he was still a bandit. Tosfos says it doesn't make sense that after he was the big Amora, he's going back to join the bandits. So the Baal Shem Tov argues. There were others arguing. Tosfos, the Baal Shem Tov says no. It was Dafka when he was at the height of Reish Lakish. He Dafka went back. He had to go back to the scene of his crimes. He had to join the bandits again. The same people that he'd been buddies with years before, the same types of people. Where he had sinned, he had to go back and join them. And this time, wipe him out. So let's read this together. V'omar Moran, the Baal Shem Tov said in number 10, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Zovin Nafshi, sold himself l'ludoi to a group of cannibals. Says the Baal Shem Tov, Kishama b'Masifta d'Rakia. He heard in the Masifta in heaven, the yeshiva in heaven. Shehikshu, this is mamash unbelievable. The Baal Shem Tov says he heard in heaven. The yeshiva in heaven had a kasha on the Gemara in Yuma Daf Pei Vav. The tshuva tzricha ba'is isha ba'is makom, right? Rav Yehuda says in Yuma, the same woman, the same place. So in heaven they asked, Heyach yiyezeh, how could you really ever replay the scenario? When you go back the second time, you have in mind to do tshuva. You're not going to sin. It's a big kunch, you're not going to sin. You're not interested in sinning, you're going to repent. That's not a real, you're not being caught off guard. You're going dafka with the kavanah to do tshuva. He says, when you enter the harlot's house, l'shem tshuva nichnas, it's for tshuva, bachno, you walk in feebly, right? Belev nishber, you're walking with a broken heart. You know, it's not the same test. And the Baal Shem Tov said, "Va'omru b'mesivta," in heaven they gave an answer. Dihitiruloi, they allowed the Baal Tshuva go to the harlot's house, smash the door, walking like you own the place with the same gusto as the year before, with the same energy. Go in with a taiva. Lichan is ba'oiseh with the same strength of ba'oiseh taiva. Don't go in a subrachan mensch. You go in with the same taiva. And then right before you do something, obviously, v'yichapes Yisrael, you contain your yetzer and not violate the ratzon of Hashem. And that way, v'sor avoinoi, the sin leaves, v'chatoyse tuchuper, the chet is atoned. Lav davka by a woman, b'chol averis, lashon hara, similar. Any avera that you did, you have to go back. You need to replay the scenario and to contain your yetzer to fix the sin. And this is pshat in the Yerushalmi. There's a Yerushalmi that says, right, they asked prophecy, what will be with the sinner? And then they asked wisdom, what will be with the sinner? They asked Torah, they asked Hashem, in famous allegorical Yerushalmi. But it says there, they asked wisdom, what should be with the sinner? And wisdom, which is Shlomo Melech quoted, Chatoim teradef ra, that sinners should be pursued by evil. So the Baal Shem Tov ties the other way around. The sinners should pursue evil. Not to do it, but to replay the scenario. Lirdef achar hara, to pursue the evil, to enter into it, in order to restrain the Yetzer Hara. And that's why Reish Lakish sold himself v'nichnas ba'omek haklippus. Why was he selling himself to the biggest bandits? The place of Tumah, because he has to. That's how he had to go back to the boys, back to the same gangs he was part of years before, and this time round he's going to destroy them. That's what the Baal Shem Tov said. So it's very. They're quoting from the Kaman is quoting from the Baal Shem Tov. It's from that's when it was written, but he's quoting a teaching from the Baal Shem Tov.
He's saying it in the name of the Baal Shem Tov.
Yeah, he's saying the Baal Shem Tov. Moron is the Baal Shem Tov. Yes. No. He's 100 years after the Baal Shem Tov, but he has a tradition from his Rebbe, that the Baal Shem Tov hat so gesagt. He's not the only one. There are other.
Too easy, this true.
There are other. We'll see. There are others who quote this Baal Shem Tov as well. Okay, so what's the issue? Okay, so comes the Noda b'Yehuda, Rabbi Yechezkel Landau, a great rabbi in Prague, in the 1700s.
May I interrupt you for 1 second, please?
Yes.
I saw that name on the chat. That is my stepfather's grandfather,
Oh wow.
great-grandfather.
Wow, beautiful. Okay, so maybe I can't say what I was going to say. I gotta bite my tongue now. Oh wow, son after son, unbelievable.
Landau?
Right, Yechezkel Landau. I'll tell you a great story with him. When he wanted to become the rabbi of Prague when he was a young man, but it was already 30, 40 years that Prague had no rabbi, because Reb David Oppenheim had been the rabbi of Prague.
Makif, no? Prague was Makif. The Makif of Rebbe was
This is in the early 1700s. Early 1700s. So the Reb David Oppenheim, he was a Rav of Prague. He was extremely ill, teetering between life and death. And the leaders of the community said, Rebbe, who should take over? So he said, Reb Meir. And with that he passed away. So they said, apparently we have to wait for someone called Reb Meir. So for the next number of decades, they had no Rav. Reb Yonason Eibishis, the great genius, was in Prague. They didn't let him be rabbi of the city. They said, your name's not Meir? So Yechezkel Landau comes in the mid-1700s, and they say, listen, you're a fine scholar, but your name's not Meir. He says, what are you talking about? They told him the story. He said, you didn't understand what David Oppenheim meant. He said like this. David Oppenheim was still alive when you asked him who should take over you. He was alive then. He was a geisus, someone who's teetering between life and death. The Gemara says most people in such a circumstance pass away. Some survive. In the Gemara, there's a big debate between Chachamim and Rab Meir. Chachamim say you always follow majority. Rab Meir says you always have to be concerned for the minority. So David Oppenheim is lying there like a geisus, teetering between life and death, and you walk over to him and say, Rebbe, who should take over? Who should take over? As if he's dying, as if he's going to die. So when he said Rab Meir, he meant to tell you, why are you treating me like I'm already gone? There's some that survive. Rab Meir cares about the minority. That's what he meant. So they liked the Yechezkel Pshat so much they made him rabbi of Prague, and he wrote the Sefer Noda B'Yehuda, and he was big stuff. His wife was a relative of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was older than him by about 15 years. The Baal Shem Tov would stay in his house. And the Baal Shem Tov used to stay in the Noda B'Yehuda's house because they were relatives. Noda B'Yehuda's wife, and Noda B'Yehuda's wife was a big chassid of the Baal Shem Tov. And when he would stay there, the Noda B'Yehuda would make him tea. Now the Noda B'Yehuda did not take the Baal Shem Tov too seriously, but he treated him as a guest. And the Baal Shem Tov then said he feels bad that Noda B'Yehuda is busy. Machteh is busy making tea. He should be sitting and learning. He stopped staying in the house. And they had there was lots of back and forth between them. The Baal Shem Tov said incredible things about the Noda B'Yehuda. The Baal Shem Tov once said that in heaven they announced, be careful of the Noda B'Yehuda and his Torah. Don't touch him. Even though he was officially on the camp of the Misnagdim, he has a very well-known tshuva, a letter, where someone asked him about saying L'Shem Yichud before doing a mitzvah. And the Noda B'Yehuda, he attacks the whole idea of L'Shem Yichud. And he actually says, I have much more to say, but I'm biting my tongue. And in the end of the letter, he quotes a pasuk, Yesharim darchi Hashem, straight are the pathways of Hashem. The pasuk says, Tzadikim yelchu bam, tzadikim follow them. Poishim sinners yikoshel bam, stumble in them. He quoted the pasuk and he exchanged the word poishim for chasidim. So the pasuk said, the ways of Hashem are just, tzadikim walk in them, and chasidim stumble in them. In other words, what he meant was that there's paths of Kabbalah. Those that know what they're doing walk straight, and the Chassidim are getting all confused, and there's destruction happening.
Is that the only time you wrote it down?
No, there's also in his Sefer Tzlach and Brochus he mentions.
Back now?
Hold on. So later on, they were printing the Noda B'Yehuda, and the Noda B'Yehuda's grandson was printing the letter. He wanted to change the pasuk from the word Chassidim back to Poishim, sinners. So he was told, now there's so many versions, some say that Tzemach Tzedek said the statement, who knows, but he was told by a Chassidic Rebbe, wait a second, your Zayda took sinners and made them into Chassidim, and you're going to take Chassidim and turn them into sinners? Wow. So it stayed that way till today. So you have a Chassidim Yikosh Lubam. Anyhow,
Which sefer is that in?
the story in...
The sefer, you said he wrote it where? A tshuva?
It's in a tshuva, yeah, Noda B'Yehuda, printed, yeah. Printed, black and white. Yeah. Anyhow, so the Noda B'Yehuda used to give drashos, and in one of his drashos that he wrote down, he writes, there are people that think that Rav Yehuda meant you have to locate the woman, you mamash have to reenact the circumstance. And he says, Baba Maisis, he says, God forbid, put yourself in yichud? Because you want to test yourself? How could you do that? And then he says the following. He says, a tzaddik can't bring themselves into a test. How could a Baal Tshuva? Who do you trust more? The tzaddik who's never sinned before can't knock on the harlot's door. And the guy who sinned there 6 months ago should go back. If I can't, he has to be more concerned.
Kal v'chomer?
Kal v'chomer. He says kal v'chomer, right? Who has to be more concerned for alcohol? The one, right? The one that stumbled has to have more gates, be more concerned they'll slip up again. The Gemara said in Sanhedrin that David HaMelech pleaded. He said, Hashem, we say Elekei Avram, Elekei Yitzchak, Elekei Yaakov. Why don't we say Elekei David? Hashem said, because I tested the others and they passed. So David said, B'chaneini Hashem v'naseini. Test me, like it's written in Tehillim. So Hashem tested him with Bathsheba and David slipped up. So the Gemara says, you see from there, never ask to be tested. Now, so says the Noda Yehuda in his drasha, that means the Gemara is saying that David HaMelech, before he ever sinned, should never have asked to be tested. That means even a tzaddik who's never sinned should stay far away from temptation. Kal v'chomer is someone who already slipped up, shouldn't go back. It doesn't make any sense. Impossible. Ridiculous. That's his kasha. He's not the only one to ask that kasha. Reb Tzadok HaKoyen of Lublin, the big Kohen, who was an incredible genius in the 1800s. He actually died in the year 1900. And he was originally not a chassid, but he was married to a woman, he was a Kohen, and he took his kahuna very seriously. His wife was caught shaking the hand of another man in her store. When he heard about that, he said, I'm a Kohen, I don't know what she's up to. He wanted to divorce her. She refused the get. He said, no problem. Rabbeinu Gershom says you can't divorce your wife against her will. I'll get 100 rabbis to sign. And he went around and he met many Chassidic rabbis. This is how he met Chassidic rabbis. And this Tzadok HaKohen was brilliant. And to each rabbi, he dazzled them with his explanations and his proofs why he's allowed to do this. He comes to the Chidushei Harim, a big Chassidic Goin who was much older than him. And the Chidushei Harim was the only one to put him in his place. What? Ger, yeah. The only one to put Tzadok HaKohen, he put him in his place. He knocked off all of his arguments, and he did not sign. Tzadok HaKohen didn't give up. He still went around, and one of the Chassidic Rebbes, Rabbi Aaron Chernobyl, whoever it was, told him, I'll sign, but you're not going to have any children. If you divorce your wife against her will, you're never going to have kids. It was a curse.
Didn't have at the time?
No. And Tzadok HaKohen said, I don't care. And he ended up divorcing his wife, and he never had children. Never had children.
He remarried, but never.
He married 2 other times, but never had kids. But he met so many great Chassidic Rebbes during this journey that he ended up becoming a chassid. He went to Ishbitz, and then he was in the Ishbitz, and then he was in Lublin. They say that when the Rogatchover was a young man, he traveled to Lublin to meet up with his Tzadok HaKohen, to speak to him in learning. And the Tzadok told him, you know what, when I was a young man like you, I also traveled around to show the older scholars I knew how to learn. Anyhow, Reb Tzadok HaKohen, by the way, just to throw in, Reb Yoel Kahn tells over that in the early years, the Rebbe they were putting out a Sikha, and the Rebbe, in one of the footnotes, he wanted to quote from Reb Tzadok's Sefer Resisei Laila. No one had access to it. It hadn't come over from Europe at that point. And the Rebbe quoted 2 or 3 lines from the Sefer, off by heart. No one could get access to the Sefer, so the Rebbe quoted by memory. Rabbi Yoel said a couple years later, he hold of the Sefer. He runs right away to compare it, and it was almost verbatim. Anyhow, so Reb Tzadok HaKohen wrote a Sefer called Takonos HaShavim, all about doing tshuva. And he has a piece where he discusses this. And he said it's ridiculous to think you should go to the scene of the crime. And he makes the same kal v'chomer as the Noda Yehuda. If a tzaddik can't go, how much more so the guy that slipped? What's he going there for? And then he writes in brackets, he says, Rabbi Yeva, one of the early Chassidic Rebbes, he was best friends with Pinchas Koritzer. He says, I know Rabbi Yeva, in his commentary on Tehillim, quotes from the Baal Shem Tov, exactly what we saw in number 10. So it's quoted in a few places. And Reb Tzadok says, I know there's a Klei Yoker in Chukas, but I don't have it with me now, so I can't check it up. Reb Tzadok says, I know what they say, but it doesn't make sense. So I don't know. He says it can't be. Can't be. So maybe you have to reinterpret this, that, or the other.
The other explanation of the Makom Shabbat Tshuva Imdin in Tzadikim Gemur Shem. If you go with the other interpretation, then yeah, you want them to go there, even You want the Baal Tshuva, not a tzaddik, because they won't be able to.
Yeah, but the shaila of tzaddik HaKohen Yehuda is the Baal Tshuva is less trusted. It's bad advice, like we saw from Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, we saw from the Lekut Yosher. Hold on, I'm going to get there in a moment. We're going to answer. Hold on. So tzaddik HaKohen says it just doesn't make sense. He says the only thing maybe he says there's a Yerushalmi. After David HaMelech sinned with Bathsheba, so how did he do tshuva? He would get his concubines to dress up beautiful clothes and makeup and everything, and he would tempt himself with them, and he would hold back. You know why that worked? Because worse comes to worse. If he stumbles, they're his wives. So says Reb Tzaddik, the only thing you could test yourself with is a taiva that worse comes to worse. If you stumble, nish gefährlich. But to go to that woman who's he said, what do you think? Can't be. So we're here to explain why it could be. How do we knock off the Kal V'chomer of the Noda B'Yehuda and of Tzaddik HaKohen? Okay, and we'll do it like this. There's a well-known dream that the Mittler Rebbe had. The Mittler Rebbe once had a dream. The Frierdiker Rebbe tells it over in a Sikha, and the Rebbe quoted this a few times. That there was a raging river and a little plank of wood going across the river, a log. And there were three great rabbis trying to cross. One was his father, the Alter Rebbe. The other two he didn't recognize. The other two tried to cross on the plank. It shook, they couldn't do it. His father, the Alter Rebbe, walked across. Didn't shake. The Mittler Rebbe woke up and he asked the Alter Rebbe, what's going on over here? What's this dream? The Alter Rebbe asked him to describe what the other people looked like. The Alter Rebbe said one's the Baal Shem Tov and one is the Maggid of Mizrich. And he says the reason why I was able to cross over is because I deal with Baalei Tshuva. I make Baalei Tshuva. The Rebbe quoted this story a number of times, and the Rebbe gives the following explanation. The water, the water refers to the Mayim Hazedonim, the issues of the evils of life. A tzaddik who's never sinned and is now confronted by a test, who knows what's going to happen? Tzaddik might stumble. Dafka, somebody who was there, tasted the sin, and now feels awful, he is or she is more trusted because they know how bad they felt. They're
a veteran.
They're repulsed by it. Toam tam achet upirish. They tasted it and they abstained. They're never going to go back.
Not that ever worked
With Baalei Tshuva. I know. So that did. So the more so. Apparently more so. There's many stories about right. So that itself needs explanation.
Maggid, maybe less.
Maggid, don't know. They all did. But
it was the whole thing. I'm not sure.
Right. But Rishoyim. The Rebbe once in a Sikha discusses that by the Baal Shem Tov, he loved the simple man like the biggest tzaddik. The Maggid took it a stage further, and he once told Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk, Melech, you hear what they're saying in heaven? You have to love the most wicked like the most righteous. But the Rebbe said it's still not the ultimate, because there's still a difference. This guy's wicked and this guy's righteous. Just you love A like B. By the Alter Rebbe, he loved the essence of a person, and the essence was all shines the same by every person. So it was like a new level of it. But either way, the Rebbe explains the story that the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, who were dealing with tzaddikim, people that didn't sin, so once they're confronted by the raging waters, they can't walk over. It's dangerous. They don't know what's going to be. It's not safe. They're not secure. Dafka, the Baalei Tshuva, who've sinned and regret it, they're the most secure. They'll never do it again. Okay, so it sounds like the Baal Tshuva is more guaranteed than the tzaddik. Here's the problem. Rashi in the end of Parshas Kedoshim quotes from Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that if someone's walking past McDonald's, Al Yomer Adam, don't say this smells horrible, even though it does. Don't say it smells horrible. You should say this is delicious. But God said no. You should say Efshi, I want. But the Eibishter said no. The Eibishter said no. That's what a well-known idea that Rashi quotes. The Alter Rebbe quotes from his teacher, the Maggid of Mizrich. This advice is only for a tzaddik. When we say tzaddik, it means someone who didn't sin in that area. That's what we mean over here. If someone's actually never ate treif, never ate from McDonald's, so they can go by and say, this is delicious, but God said no. But if somebody's actually sinned there before, if someone used to eat there and now they're pulling restraint, they're doing tshuva, they can't say, I want. It's dangerous. Because they might actually do it. What do you see from the Maggid of Mizritch's words? Who is more guaranteed? The tzaddik. You can't trust the Baal Tshuva. Can't trust the Baal Tshuva.
Different logic.
So it seems to be an open contradiction. Who are we more secure about? The guy that sinned and then pulled back? Or the guy that never sinned? The Mittel Rebbe's dream, the Rebbe explains that the guy that sinned and pulled back will never go there again because he knows how awful it was. The Maggid said just the opposite. Someone that sinned can't get too close. The tzaddik can get close, he's not going to do it. But the guy that did it once will fall again. So this question was asked, and the Rebbe has a footnote in a sikha where he answers, it depends. It depends on what type of tshuva the person did. Do you do tshuva out of fear or tshuva out of love? If someone does tshuva out of fear, that means they're scared of God, scared of punishment. Where do their passions lie? Still in the things that they did, right? With the woman and the food, that's where the passions lie. But out of fear, if someone fears, so therefore they go in the straight line. But such a person, their passions are still there. So they have to be very careful not to get too close. They're going to stumble. That person is less trusted than the tzaddik. But if someone does tshuva out of love, his passion's with the Eibishter. He loves God. No longer do they have any feeling towards that sin. No, sinna. Oyeve Hashem sinura. Fakir. The more you love God, the more you hate the sin. And this person hates the sin so much, they're more secure than the tzaddik. So it depends. I don't know if that's what you... No. But it depends. So this is... So look at number 12 for a second. Number 12 is a very important... Okay, we're almost done. Number 12 is a very important Gemara. A Gemara in Brachas. This is the big debate between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yevo. Amar Rabbi Chia Barabba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. All the prophets, Kulan, all the beautiful things you see in the Nevi'im. Lo nisnabu elo leBaalei Tshuva. It's all for Baalei Tshuva. But for a tzaddik gomer who never sinned, they get even more. Ayin loidas lakim zulsecha. For him, the pasuk says, no one has ever seen what awaits him. Says the Gemara, that's Rabbi Yochanan. Upliga de Rabbi Yevo, argues on Rabbi Yevo. Rabbi Yevo says the opposite. Baal Tshuva is greater. Makom shebaalei Tshuva oimdin, in the place Baalei Tshuva stand, tzaddikim gemurim can't stand. Shenema, and what's the proof? Shalom, shalom, lo rachak v'la korev. The Eibush says, peace, peace to the one who's distant and the one who's close. Lo rachak bereisha, first Hashem says shalom aleichem to the guy who's distant. V'had, and afterwards the guy that's close. So the Eibush holds the Baal Tshuva closer. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Amalach, he says no. My rachak, distant doesn't mean someone who's distant from Hashem. It means someone who's distant from the sin. Rachak midvar aveira meikara. Rachak means the guy that was far from the sin, the tzaddik. He's the one that Hashem gives shalom to first. The second guy who's karev means he was close to the aveira and now is distant. So it's a debate between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yevo. So ever since this statement was written, people have wondered, why would Rabbi Yevo hold the Baal Tshuva is greater? I mean, it's better to sin and then repent, better not to sin in the first place, right?
Great. The logic of explaining the pasuk makes more sense.
Okay, but what's the Svara l'chayra? The Maharsha, 450 years ago, the Maharsha dealt with this, and the Maharsha says the Gemara cannot be taken at face value. Impossible. The Maharsha says, you know what the Gemara is talking about? It's not talking about a sinner versus someone who didn't sin. Both people never sinned. One doesn't want to sin. The other wants to but breaks themselves. It's like the tzaddik and the beinoni. The Alter Rebbe is tzaddik who has no desire for evil, and the beinoni who has to control themselves. As the Rambam has a famous chapter in his 8 prakim, the Shemona prakim, his introduction to Pirkei Avos, the Rambam has a whole parak discussing the two people. The koivish is Yisra, the one that vanquishes their Yetzer, versus the person who's l'chatchila, a pious person, has no desire. Who's greater? So the Maharsha says that's the debate. That's the debate. Rabbi Vo says the Beinoni is greater. Rabbi Yochanan says the tzaddik who doesn't want is greater. But says the Maharsha, if someone actually sinned, That's for sure a lower level. That's the Marsha's take. Look in the Rambam in number 13. The Rambam learns not like that. Number 13 says the Rambam in Hilchos Teshuva. V'loi oid. As he's talking about Teshuva, his schar is very great because he tasted the taste of sin. He separated himself and vanquishes his yetzer. And then he says the Chachamim said about Teshuva, and he's talking about someone that sinned. The place where they stand, tzaddikim gemurim are not able to stand. By the Rebbe would always point out in the Gemara in number 12 it says the place where Baalei Teshuva stand, tzaddikim gemurim don't stand. The Rambam added the words tzaddikim gemurim are not able to stand. They don't even have the ability. But says the Rambam koloimar, their mile is greater from those that never sinned. And he says why? Because they have a battle. Because the Baal Teshuva forever has a struggle, and that struggle makes them greater. But he's learning the person actually sinned. Fine, and the Rambam is passing like Rabbi Vo, and unlike the Mashor, he learns literally the person sinned. Okay, so here's the thing. Rab Menachem Azariah of Panu, the great Rameh Panu, and the Shalah, both and two of the greatest Kabbalists in the 1500s and early 1600s, both of them say Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Vo are not arguing. They're b'chlal not arguing. They're talking about two different people. When Rabbi Yochanan says that tzaddik is greater than a Baal Teshuva, he's talking about someone who does tshuva out of fear. Rabbi Vo is talking about someone who does tshuva out of love. Someone who does tshuva out of love is greater than a tzaddik. That's what Rabbi Vo is talking about. Rabbi Yochanan is talking about something else, tshuva out of fear.
Same like you said before.
Now, the Rambam in number 13 disagrees. The Rambam holds unequivocally. Even if someone does tshuva out of fear and fakert, and their whole life they still want the Aveir and they battle with themselves, he said that he's still greater.
How do you know that?
Because the Rambam says the person's constantly fighting with themselves. That's even tshuva me'ira. That's dafka tshuva me'ira. Tshuva out of Ava, they now love the Eibishter. The guy that's constantly battling is dafka the guy that returned out of fear to Hashem, but he still desires the Aveira. He's the one who has the real battle.
He desires it, but he loves Hashem so much he doesn't want to do it.
No, but who has the bigger battle? No, who has the bigger battle? Who has the bigger battle? Tshuva me'ira, you have a bigger battle. The Rambam said it's the battle that makes them greater. Anyhow, okay, you can argue with me, don't worry, it's fine. You won't be the first one, you won't be the last one. But the Rameh Panu in the Shalah says, and the Rebbe quotes it elsewhere in letters, that
What's the bigger battle? the Teshuva Me'av or the Tzaddik? Compare those two. Why you compare the Teshuva Me'av and Teshuva Me'av?
no, because the Rambam says number 13 that the Baal Teshuva is greater than the Tzaddik because he's koivish yitzroi more.
The Teshuva Me'av guy, you compare the Teshuva
No, but
Me'av guy to the
imagine the
Me'ira
Tshuva Me'ira guy, he's battling even more, so he's the greatest of the three. He's the greatest of the three. Anyhow, let's. We're all supposed to be Baalei Teshuva. You know, there was a.
Yeah, but I'm the real deal. These guys are all
That's it. The real McCoy, like they say in Australia. The real McCoy. The real McCoy.
You don't pull into the drive-through.
These guys can't do that.
That's it.
Good?
Phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. See, there you go. But he doesn't want to do it. But you don't want
That's
to
it. That's it. That's it. Listen, the Rambam says you are the man of the room over here. You're the man of the room. Next time you're giving the shir.
Better than chicken.
By you, it's out of love. That smile on the face, truth out of love, truth out of love. So let's just wrap it up for now. So according to the Rameh Panu and the Shalah, when Rabbi Vo says a Baal Teshuva is greater, he's talking about someone who does tshuva out of love. Tshuva out of fear is Rabbi Yochanan, and there's no debate between the two opinions. That's the approach of the Rameh and the Shalah. There's no debate, it depends. Tshuva out of fear, tshuva out of love. Now Rabbi Vo uses the words Baalei Teshuva. And according to the Rameh Panu and the Shalah, he's talking about tshuva out of love. So we go back to number 1, when the Gemara said, Heichi Domi Baal Teshuva, the words Baal Teshuva means complete tshuva. Like the Rambam said in the beginning of number 2, it's tshuva gemura, which means we're talking about Rabbi Vo's level of tshuva out of love. Tshuva out of love, then the Baal Shem Tov is right. He can go back to the scene of the crime. The Noda Yehuda asked, Reb Tzadok HaKohen asked, if you don't trust the tzaddik, for sure not the Baal Teshuva. That's a true logic, but only if it's tshuva out of fear. If it's tshuva out of love, you have the dream of the Mittel Rebbe, the fakert. The place where the tzaddik can't go, the Baal Teshuva can go. So that's why the Reb Tzadok and the Noda B'Yehuda who says that the Baal Tshuva is less trusted is true if it's tshuva out of fear. But that's not who we're referring to in number one. When it says Baal Tshuva, it means the complete tshuva, like the Rambam says, and that's when, like Rabbi Vol uses the words Baal Tshuva, someone who owns the tshuva, and he meant tshuva out of love. Tshuva out of love, they're more concrete, more stable, safer than the tzaddik, and they can dafka go with the tzaddik, just like the dream of the Mittler Rebbe. And that's why it could be they're supposed to locate. Now, does it mean to mamish go into the room of the woman? Now, that's yichud. Yichud mamish would be, but get within the vicinity and pull yourself away. And pull yourself away.
Everything now clicks.
Anyhow, okay, we're gonna end over here.
Right next to the stone zone.
You said that the Rebbe wrote in the thing.